Hi, I'm Mickle and Bass.
And I'm Ann Mickle of Mickle and Bass. In this video, we're going to talk about the 4 things that every injured worker should do if they're in a work-related accident.
Ann and I are former workers' comp commissioners, as are 2 of our partners at Mickle and Bass, and our practice focuses primarily on the representation of men and women in South Carolina who've been hurt at work.
And again, there are going to be 4 things that we are going to recommend that you do if you're ever involved in a work-related accident. Alan?
Number 1, always notify your employer if you've been hurt at work. Now, I know that if it's 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and you're lifting something and you feel a little stab into your lower back, your first inclination is, I don't want to start filling out this paperwork. I'll just go home, see how it does over the weekend. Well, when I was a workers' comp commissioner, I'll bet you 1 out of 5 cases that I had to hear involved somebody delaying notification of an injury. If you wait over the weekend and report the accident on Monday, what do you think the insurance company is going to say? And it's always, you did this over the weekend at home.
That's right.
That's right. So number 1, always notify your employer that you get hurt.
That's exactly right. Number 2, if you are hurt on the job and you need medical treatment, insist that your supervisor, your employer get to the right person and insist that you be given medical treatment. Too often, we'll see folks that are injured on the job, but they haven't, 1, reported the injury to anyone, and then 2, they haven't asked for appropriate medical treatment or any medical treatment. And quite frankly, if the employer doesn't know that you have an injury, and then number 2, if you don't ask for medical treatment for the injury, they won't know, in all fairness, the employer won't know that you had a work-related injury for which you need medical treatment. So it's very important that if you're hurt on the job, insist that you be given medical treatment to deal with the injury that you're having, and so that claim can be documented, properly documented.
Well, that's right. Documentation means everything, because if you go to a doctor the day of your injury, that doctor is going to write down everything that you tell them, and every body part that you complain about is going to go into that report. But if you don't go to the doctor, let's say you told your supervisor, man, I hurt my back. And, it's common for a supervisor to say, well, just shake it off, or, just take it easy until the shift is over. All right, fine. And you don't go to the doctor. You come back on Monday and you say, well, I hurt my back on Friday. So the big boss goes to your supervisor and says, hey, did Joe tell you that he hurt his back on Friday? News to me.
Right.
So where are you then?
Yeah.
Always notify your employer that you've been hurt at work, and insist that you go to a doctor to document your injuries.
That's exactly right. Documentation is the number 3 point that we're making to you. Tell the doctor about every injury that you have had in the accident. And Alan does a good job of oftentimes talking about the back, and the back leading to the what we call radicular pain.
Right. When you go to a doctor, if you've got more than one part of your body that's hurting, it's common practice. It's human nature to tell the doctor about the part of your body that hurts worse, and maybe not mention something that doesn't hurt quite that badly. Well, life has a nasty habit of kind of changing as time goes on. What hurts the worst today in 6 weeks may be perfectly fine, and what is some sort of nagging ache or a little stiffness in 6 weeks may be killing you. So it's really important that you tell the doctor about every single part of your body that feels different than it did before the accident. Because if you don't tell the doctor about a body part that's hurting you, then it doesn't hurt. And if you try and tell somebody about it later, what's the insurance company going to do? Well, we don't think you hurt that on your accident.
That's exactly right. And from a legal perspective, and in this industry, and what we see happening all the time, is that if you don't properly report and tell the doctor what all your injuries are, as time progresses, and then you tell them about it later, the insurance company is going to minimize their risk. They're going to say, well, no, this didn't happen on our watch because you never complained about it. And then the fourth thing that you should do if you're injured on the job is know your rights. Know your rights.
Well, exactly. The section of the South Carolina Code that deals with workers' compensation claims is about that thick, this thick. There are hundreds of cases that have been decided by our South Carolina Supreme Court and our South Carolina Court of Appeals that deal with workers' comp. And there are dozens and dozens and dozens of regulations which deal with handling workers' comp claims. And I'll be honest with you, if you know every single one of those laws and you've read every single one of those cases decided by our appellate courts, and you know each one of the regulations that I just told you about, and you know how to gather up the evidence and present it in the way most favorable to you, then you don't need a lawyer. But how many people on the street know how to do that?
Not many. And so just to recap, the four things that you should do if you're injured on the job: 1, report the accident. We call it notice. You give the employer notice that you had an injury on the job. 2, insist if you're hurt that the employer send you to a doctor and provide medical treatment. 3, when you see the doctor, tell them about every body part that was injured in the accident. And 4, know your rights.
And if you don't know your rights, contact the lawyers at Mickle and Bass, mickleandbass.com.